Welcome, everyone. During today's session, we're going to be looking at how the DASH diet can support your health. We're going to explore the benefits of the DASH diet and provide practical strategies for incorporating it into daily life. By the end of the presentation, you will have the knowledge to make informed choices that promote better blood pressure control and better health. On today's agenda, we're going to be talking about what is hypertension. We're going to discuss the risk factors for hypertension, what is the DASH diet. We're going to talk about exercises and relaxation techniques, sodium reduction strategies, food label reading, and we're going to share our resources with you. So first, let's start with a question. What lifestyle changes do you think makes the biggest difference in improving blood pressure? 1. Limiting alcohol consumption. 2. Implementing the DASH diet. 3. Exercising regularly. Or 4. Meditation. So the answer is that all of these are helpful strategies, but the DASH diet with low sodium has the biggest potential. And how would you rate your knowledge of the DASH diet? Do you think you have poor knowledge, fair knowledge, good knowledge, or very good? What is hypertension? Hypertension, also known as high blood pressure, means the heart has to work harder to push blood through the body. When blood vessels get tight or stiff, the pressure goes up. It's like trying to blow air through a straw that's too small. It takes more effort. This can happen without any signs, so people might not know they have it. Doctors measure blood pressure with two numbers, and if these numbers are too high, it means the pressure is too strong. Keeping blood pressure normal helps the body stay healthy. The target blood pressure is less than 140/90 millimeters of mercury, but if you have diabetes, the target is less than 130/80 millimeters of mercury. Millimeters of mercury, mmHg, is the unit to measure blood pressure. And you'll hear us use this term several times throughout this presentation. The top number represents the pressure in your vessels when your heart contracts. The lower number represents the pressure in your vessels when your heart relaxes. The upper number is called systolic blood pressure, and the lower number is called diastolic blood pressure. Hypertension affects almost 1 in 4 Canadian adults aged 20 to 79 years. Rates increase sharply with age. 71% of people with hypertension are in their 70s. High blood pressure can hurt the cardiovascular system, the eyes, and the kidneys by damaging blood vessels in those organs. What are the risk factors for hypertension? First, we're going to talk about non-modifiable risk factors, such as age. Blood pressure tends to rise as you get older because arteries stiffen over time. Then there's also family history and genetics, as well as race and ethnicity. Black, Hispanic, Asian adults have higher rates of blood pressure. There's also gender. Men are more likely to develop hypertension before age 65, and after 65, women are at higher risk. Moving on to modifiable risk factors for hypertension, we're starting off this section with a question for you. And the question is, name the following risk factor. This risk factor increases hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that can lead to higher blood pressure. So, what do you think this risk factor is? You probably guessed it. It's stress. Stress is one of the things we can try to address to help prevent blood pressure. When we feel stressed, our body releases special chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals get us ready to fight or run away, which makes our heart beat faster and our blood vessels tighten. This causes our blood pressure to go up for a short time, which is normal during quick temporary stress. But if we're stressed all the time, our body stays in this alert, tense state. Over time, this can keep our blood pressure high. Chronic stress also causes inflammation, which can harm our blood vessels and make them less flexible over time. That's why managing stress is just as important as eating well and staying active. We'll talk about stress management later on, but now let's look at more of the risk factors that we can control. These are modifiable risk factors for hypertension: unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, being overweight, excess alcohol consumption, smoking, stress, and poor sleep quality. Some medical conditions also increase your risk for hypertension, such as diabetes, chronic kidney disease, obesity, and obstructive sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is often overlooked just because it's defined during sleep, so people may not be aware. Some symptoms of sleep apnea are loud snoring, choking, or gasping for air during sleep, and excessive daytime sleepiness. Sleep apnea is diagnosed by doing a sleep test that counts how often your breathing stops or gets too shallow during the night. Treating sleep apnea matters because untreated sleep apnea affects your whole body, not just your sleep. It can put stress on the heart and the brain due to having less oxygen throughout the night. It can also increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and memory problems. Poor sleep affects many hormones involved in appetite, blood sugar control, weight management. And this is why obstructive sleep apnea is linked with weight gain and type 2 diabetes. So for those with diabetes, treatment can help to stabilize blood sugars. Here we describe the link between diabetes and high blood pressure. Diabetes can affect the blood vessels, the nervous system, and the kidneys. The end result is that the blood vessels can become tighter or more narrowed, and there can also be an increased pumping from the heart. And there can be greater sodium and water retention from the kidney. All of that together increases a person's chance to develop high blood pressure. We have reviewed the factors that can affect our risk of developing blood pressure. Let's talk about the DASH diet, which was developed to help prevent and manage high blood pressure. It's recognized as one of the best heart-healthy diets. It's a diet that emphasizes nutrient-rich, low-sodium foods. The health benefits of the DASH diet is that it lowers blood pressure, it improves cholesterol, it can help with weight management, and it reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes and heart disease. It's a diet that is recommended by Diabetes Canada and Hypertension Canada for treatment and prevention of diabetes and hypertension. The DASH diet trial was an important study that was done to look at the effect of dietary patterns on blood pressure. In this study, 3 groups were compared. The first group was a controlled diet that was low in fruits, vegetables, and dairy products. It resembled the typical North American diet. That diet was compared with diet number 2, which was a diet rich in fruits and vegetables. And it was also compared to diet number 3. That was called a combination diet, and it was rich in fruits, vegetables, and low-fat dairy products, as well as being low in fat. Now, which diet did you think produced the lowest blood pressure? Yes, it's diet number 3. So let's look at the DASH diet in more detail. You can see what foods are eaten frequently in the left-hand column, such as vegetables, fruit, whole grains, low-fat dairy, protein that is low in saturated fat, such as fish, poultry, and legumes. Legumes is plant protein like beans, lentils, and chickpeas. And it also has lean meats. You can also have nuts and seeds and vegetable oils. What you should not have so often is on the right-hand column. These are fatty meats, full-fat dairy, processed foods, and sweets. Limiting sodium intake can also help, and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes. The DASH diet is structured around food groups and portion control. These are the recommended daily servings per day for the average adult, but keep in mind that specific amount that you eat will depend on your size and appetite, so don't force yourself to eat more. The important thing is to have balance in your diet, and we're going to show you what balance looks like shortly. For now, let's just look at what a serving looks like. For vegetables, one serving is 1 cup of raw leafy vegetables or half a cup of cooked vegetables. And to get all the vegetables you need in a day, you need at least 2 servings of vegetables at lunch and dinner. For fruit, 1 serving is a medium piece of fruit or half a cup of fresh or frozen fruit or a quarter cup of dried fruit. If you have diabetes, make sure you spread your fruit throughout the day rather than having it all at once. And lastly, grain products are recommended, mainly whole grains. For low-fat dairy, 2 to 3 servings per day are recommended. Examples are 250 milliliters of yogurt or kefir or milk or 50 grams of cheese. This amount of cheese is roughly the size of your 2 thumbs put together. For lean meats, poultry and fish, the recommended amount is 6 ounces or less per day. And just to give you an example what that looks like, 3 ounces looks like a serving of a deck of cards. So 6 ounces are 2 decks of cards for the day. They say 6 ounces or less as they do encourage you to have plant sources of protein 4 to 5 times per week. So you can top off the protein for your day by having pulses like beans, lentils, chickpeas, or tofu, or by adding some nuts and seeds as well. A serving looks like 1/3 of a cup or 1.5 ounces of nuts, or 2 tablespoons of nut butter, or 2 tablespoons of seeds, or half a cup of cooked dried beans or peas. And for fats and oils, it's recommended 2 to 3 servings per day, where a serving is 1 teaspoon of soft margarine, or 1 tablespoon of low-fat mayo, or 2 tablespoons of light salad dressing, or 1 teaspoon of vegetable oil. So how would you make this a more DASH-friendly meal? Add more vegetables, a source of low-fat dairy, and switch the white rice to whole grains such as wild or brown rice. If it's too much food, reduce your portions of each food group, or serve yourself on a smaller plate and save your yogurt for later. And how would you make this a more DASH-friendly, balanced meal? So this salad has cucumber, radishes, tomatoes, onion, corn, peppers, herbs, walnuts, and light feta cheese. So to make it more balanced, you can add a good source of protein, such as plant protein like beans, for example. Some people might ask if adding walnuts is enough protein, but it's not enough, and it's more of a garnish at the meal. Also, if you're adding feta cheese, add just a small portion since it's high in sodium, or a different idea is to have a yogurt instead, or make a tzatziki, which is a yogurt-based dip or dressing with cucumber, garlic, and dill. so you can use that for dressing instead. If you have taken a class with us before, you've probably seen this healthy plate method similar to Canada's food guide. This helps you achieve balance in your diet. You should fill half your plate with vegetables, a quarter of your plate with protein foods by choosing a variety of protein. That also includes some plant protein or fish or lean meats. And fill the remaining quarter of your plate with whole grain carbohydrates. So you can use this plate method if you're following the DASH diet. But you will have to remind yourself to have fruit and dairy twice a day to get your daily recommendations. If you don't like dairy, you can choose a milk alternative such as soy milk or almond milk, for example. What percentage of Canadians meet the recommended intake for fruits and vegetables? What do you think? 30%, 40%, 50%, or 60%? The answer is only 30% of Canadians meet the recommended intake for fruits and vegetables. Consuming enough vegetables is a real challenge for many people. If it helps you, there is a resource that you can use. Just Google DASH Eating Plan NIH. NIH stands for National Institutes of Health. If you want to do some meal planning and self-tracking periodically, it might help you. Here you can see that you can check off your food groups that you've had throughout the day. And we're going to share this link at the end of the presentation as well. The original DASH diet study that was presented to you so far was followed by another study called the DASH sodium trial. Sodium is another word for salt. It compared the typical North American diet with the DASH diet at varying levels of sodium intake. We learned that reducing daily sodium lowered blood pressure for participants on either diet. However, the DASH diet plus the low sodium group lowered blood pressure more than the typical American diet at all three sodium levels. So from this, we learned that reducing sodium intake and following the DASH diet is more beneficial for lowering blood pressure than following the DASH diet alone or reducing sodium alone. How much blood pressure reduction is beneficial? For each 5 millimeters of mercury reduction in systolic blood pressure, there is about 10% lower risk of major cardiovascular events such as heart attack and stroke. With the DASH diet, you can reduce your blood pressure by 5 millimeters of mercury, and if you also reduce your sodium, there's a greater effect that's about 10 to 15 millimeters of mercury, or a 30% reduction in heart attacks and stroke. And this is why we say that reducing sodium intake and following the DASH diet is more beneficial for lowering blood pressure than following the DASH diet alone or reducing sodium alone. Going back to the previous slide, we just added exercise here because it's also very effective. With exercise, you can reduce your blood pressure further by about 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury. So we're taking a few minutes to talk about exercise now since it's so important. Hypertension Canada recommends a minimum of 30 to 60 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise 4 to 7 days per week, in addition to routine activities of daily living. Now here are some examples of moderate intensity activity: brisk walking, swimming, cycling, tennis, power yoga, dancing, yard work, water aerobics. People often rate physical activity intensity on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is the level of effort required to sit, and 10 is maximal effort. Moderate intensity activity is a level of effort of 5 to 6 out of 10. You can do the talk test. A person doing moderate intensity aerobic activity can talk but not sing during the activity. All that said, do what you can and do what you like to do. It's consistency over time that is most important. Always start slow so you don't injure yourself. And if you're planning to start exercising other than walking, check with your doctor to make sure it's safe for you to start. This image shows the effects of different exercise on blood pressure. So the exercises shown are aerobic exercise training, such as running or cycling, for example. There's also resistance training, combined training, that is combined aerobic and resistance exercise. And lastly, there's isometric exercise. What you can see is that all types of exercise can help over time. Now, isometric exercise training seems to be the most effective mode, which is the last exercise on your right. And isometric exercise is when you push, hold, or tense a muscle without actually moving it. Examples are holding a plank or a squat position against the wall, for example. Another example is holding a dumbbell or water bottle and contracting your biceps for 10 seconds as you do that. Or standing on your toes so you're contracting your calves as you hold on to the wall so you don't fall. Or another example is squeezing your shoulder blades together for a few seconds. Now, as you try to do all of these exercises, don't hold your breath or else it may cause a temporary rise in blood pressure. So, important note, remember to breathe. Speaking of breathing, deep breathing and other techniques that allow your body to relax can be beneficial, as we know that stress is a risk factor for hypertension. For example, deep breathing can help to reduce your blood pressure in the range of 6 to 10 millimeters of mercury over time. Meditation, yoga, tai chi, mindfulness, listening to relaxing music therapy, progressive muscle relaxation, all seem to have similar effects. And while there's no direct evidence for activities like knitting or reading, it can likely benefit you because it lowers stress and activates the body's relaxation response. Breathing exercises are a good way to relax, reduce tension, and relieve stress. This is because when you breathe deeply, it sends a message to your brain to calm down and relax. We are sharing a link to a video that guides you on how to do progressive muscle relaxation in combination with deep breathing. And we also will be sharing with you a link to a reference for how to do deep breathing exercises. So these links will be shared at the end of the presentation. Now let's get back to talking about diet. We're going to continue our discussion by switching our focus to sodium. Here's a question for you. How much sodium does the average Canadian consume per day? The average sodium intake in Canada is around 3,500 milligrams of sodium per day, with about 90% of children exceeding healthy limits. Most dietary sodium comes from processed and restaurant foods. Hypertension Canada recommends reducing sodium intake to less than 2,000 milligrams per day for both prevention and management of hypertension. That's about 3/4 of a teaspoon. Another question for you. True or false? Cutting back on table salt is the best way to cut sodium. The answer is false. Processed foods is probably where you get most of your salt. foods don't have to taste salty to be high in sodium. So if you're on a low sodium diet, you need to avoid canned foods, processed foods, and limit eating out. These are quick tips to reduce your sodium intake. Eat more homemade foods prepared with fresh, minimally processed ingredients. Limit the use of salty condiments like soy sauce, pickles, gravies, and mustard. Be watchful for sodium hidden in foods that do not taste salty, like bread. Use diluted tomato paste, fresh tomatoes, or homemade stock instead of tomato sauce, powdered bouillon, or canned soup in recipes. Limit adding salt when cooking. When you reduce salt, you can experiment adding other flavorful ingredients. For example, garlic and onions, lemon juice or zest, ground black pepper, dried onion or onion powder, balsamic, apple cider vinegar, or red wine vinegars, ginger, and a variety of herbs and spices, including paprika, rosemary, coriander, dill, sage, tarragon, and cinnamon. What natural ingredients do you use in your food to add flavor? When it comes to salt substitutes, many of these products contain blends of sodium chloride and potassium chloride. So they reduce the sodium but replace it with potassium. The problem is that some people may not be able to have these products because their doctor has told them to watch their potassium intake. This can happen if you have chronic kidney disease, heart disease, liver disease, and diabetes, or people taking certain blood pressure lowering medications or diuretics might also need to watch their potassium. So tell your doctor if you're planning to use salt substitutes to see if it's safe for you. Mrs. Dash is a common salt substitute. Most Mrs. Dash seasoning blends tend to be low in potassium, but always check the food label to be sure. So here, by reading the ingredient list, you can see that they have not added any potassium chloride. The nutrition facts table also says that there is little potassium in the product as it contains only about 1% of daily value for potassium in a quarter of a teaspoon. We're going to talk about reading food labels in more detail later on. When eating out, we may not be aware of how much sodium we're getting. We're going to see this in the next few slides. Which meal do you think is higher in sodium, number 1 or number 2? Let's look at the answer on the next slide. They're both very high in sodium. Caesar salad, though, with crispy chicken has 1,140 milligrams of sodium compared to the Big Mac that has 950 milligrams of sodium. Which meal do you think is higher in sodium, number 1 or 2? Let's look at the answer on the next slide. Here you can see that the first meal is much higher in sodium with 1,615 milligrams of sodium compared to the quarter chicken, which is 615 milligrams. So when buying foods in a package, it's important to remember to read the food label. And we're going to practice doing this in the next few slides. There tends to be more sodium in packaged foods. Industry does this to boost the flavor of the food and to preserve it better, as sodium is also a preservative. When it's used as a preservative, you might see words like sodium benzoate and sodium nitrate when you read the ingredient list. Here are some examples of processed foods with their sodium content compared to unprocessed versions. So for example, cucumber for 7 slices, there's only 2 milligrams of sodium compared to pickles, where one pickle is 569 milligrams. Another example is chicken breast, with only 74 milligrams in 3 ounces of chicken breast, compared to chicken pie, where a serving of a frozen chicken pie is 889 milligrams of sodium. Another example is tomato. So just fresh tomato, 14 milligrams of sodium for a small tomato, compared to tomato soup. 1 cup is 960 milligrams. Last example, for pork tenderloin, where 3 ounces of meat is about 58 milligrams, compared to ham, which is processed, and for 3 ounces it has 1,095 milligrams of sodium. To understand what's in a product, it's important to read the ingredient list and also the nutrition facts table. You can see an example of the nutrition facts table here. What you want to do first is read the amount of food that they're talking about. Here it's 12 crackers. Then look at the percentage daily value, or percentage DV. Now this product contains 16% of your daily value for sodium in a portion of 12 crackers. Because that's above 15%, that means there's a lot of sodium in this food. So use the tip on this slide to understand the percentage daily value and to try to choose products that have less than 15% or less than 5% of the daily value for sodium to select foods with lower sodium content. So let's practice looking at some nutrition facts tables, since it's the best way to get your information. Now look at the serving size on the nutrition facts table here. The serving size for the deli ham is 2 slices. Compare this amount to the quantity that you actually eat. Read the percentage daily value on the food label. Remember that 5% daily value or less is a little, and 15% daily value or more is a lot. So here, 2 slices of ham has 32% daily value for sodium. So deli meat tends to have a lot of sodium. I think most people, though, would probably have more than 2 slices. So here is an example for a nutrition facts table for a type of bread. Now keep in mind that every bread is different. So what this says is that the reference amount is 2 slices of bread, and this product has 12% daily value of sodium in 2 slices. Now, this is an activity that you can do at home. You can go to your kitchen and see if you have any kind of sauces, condiments, or canned foods that you think might be high in sodium. And you can practice reading food labels. Remember the tip that we talked about using the diagram here in the right-hand corner, the bottom right. And I'd be curious to know, did you find a food item that is 15% or higher for sodium? And if you did, then you can consider looking for an alternative product at the supermarket by using the nutrition facts table and comparing, from product to product, or keep in mind to just have a smaller portion of this higher sodium food. In conclusion, the DASH low sodium diet is an effective way to reduce blood pressure in addition to other methods like exercise and stress management. It's in line with Health Canada recommendations, and using the Healthy Plate method can help you achieve your goals. And we do want to have more of the following foods: whole grains like brown rice, oats, whole grain bread, quinoa, etc. Fruits and vegetables have a variety of colors throughout the week. Low-fat dairy such as skim milk and yogurt. Lean proteins such as chicken, fish, legumes. And healthy fats such as olive oil or vegetable oil and nuts. We want to have these foods less often and in smaller portions. Processed and salty foods such as chips, canned soups, etc. Fatty meats and full-fat dairy. Sugary beverages and desserts. Tropical oils such as coconut and palm oil. Some additional tips for success are reading nutrition labels for sodium content, cooking more meals at home, using herbs and spices instead of salt, gradually reducing salt to adjust to your taste preferences. And the good news is that your taste buds get replaced every 3 months and adapt to your diet. So as you reduce the sodium in your diet, you don't need as many salt taste receptors, so the body produces less. So in 3 months it gets easier, and after 6 months it's much easier. We have a list of resources for you at the very end. And just as an example, we have links for you that have recipes and meal plans for ideas. Some of them are from the National Institutes of Health and Cookspiration as well, which is from Dietitians of Canada. We also have a simple fact sheet that summarizes many of the things discussed today and gives you an idea about how much blood pressure reduction you can expect with different methods. So here are the resources as promised, and we hope that you found this presentation informative. So here I asked the question again that we asked at the beginning of the presentation. How would you rate your knowledge of the DASH diet? And hopefully you would have improved with this presentation. So just one more question to reflect on. How confident are you that you'll be able to start including lifestyle changes to help improve your blood pressure? So hopefully you will have increased your confidence in improving your blood pressure through the recommendations that we've discussed today. So I leave you with our contact number in case you want to call in to book an appointment with one of us at the Diabetes Management Program. Hope you enjoyed the presentation, and take care.